fan perspective, I'm no different than anybody else. I'm watching, the football teams I like, or the baseball or hockey or whatever. I'm watching those teams play, and I want them to win. And, so you see, you're looking at it in that regards. From a coaching standpoint or from a team building standpoint, you're looking at what tendencies are in place to help you have success. So from a coaching standpoint, obviously, you want different results. But I came out of both of those games this weekend with every indicator that we're a much better team than we were Saturday night and overall against Alaska. Like even against Alaska the first night, first two periods were okay. We had a really good third period. We hoped that would parlay into a good game Saturday night, and it didn't. We won the game, but win or lose, I saw more lasting, long-lasting achievements and growth this past weekend than I did prior to that. Well, he's part of a unit that you can't mention his name without mentioning Lepa and mentioning Lori Raymond and how that group as a unit had good synergy. I mean, they led us in really virtually every statistical category that lends itself to driving, offense and is indicative of strong defensive play. The only real time that line had any trouble on the weekend was when a different centerman was out there in place of Lepa for whatever reason, a face-off side or something, whatever the play is, a mismatch line off of an icing where we were in the middle of a change or whatever it might be. So that line has synergy. The sum of the work of the group is more than the individual parts. So you can't name one without naming the others. There's certainly a line that we would, based on last weekend. Now, Lori's mom and brother were here. Is he going to be the same this weekend without that motivation that he had? If that's the case, we'd like to fly his mom over for the winter and have her stay here for the winter, if that means that he's going to keep growing like he did this past weekend. But in saying that, they're a line that you can use as, and we've done that in the past. I mean, if you remember back, we had Nardella with Levi Stauber, and I don't remember who was the other player on that line. It might have been Richards or somebody a couple of years ago, and that line won hockey games for us. They got goals. Nardella had like a 7-point weekend at Alaska early in the year, and they were a line that we used to reference how you can have success if you're all playing together and not playing as a group. So that line as a whole, we'd like to take some of them and put them with some other players to try to get other players going. But we don't want to take away from their growth either, because at some point, I think, I look at Kooks in practice, you mentioned him, he's scoring goals in practice. Like I said to him yesterday, now listen, look what you're doing here. Do it in the game. You're getting the same looks, same things. Why not? Why not? Like, what's the limit? Like, don't limit yourself because now it's a game and I'm not used to doing this or whatever, because if they're scoring goals, we're pretty happy with that. And so don't think, well, I'm not supposed to score goals. You're doing everything so well. Finish the play off. You're getting the shots. You're doing it in practice. It's not like it's not happening. So from those guys, we'd like to, we'd like them to get some goals. Now, they did get the goal on Friday. They won the face-off, got the play back. Chase made a nice shot. So they did result in creating that goal that we got on Saturday night. I'm sorry. Well, I don't think when I look at it, I don't think there's a lot of difference between us and Northern in overall. Now, we have a little bit more experience, you would say, at a couple of positions, but in overall productivity and how they're playing and how they play, I think that the weekend's a toss-up and I think they probably feel the same way that they feel, they're playing against really good teams. They're defending well. They're playing hard. They're controlling some play. And they're getting it from their depth, and we're doing the same thing. But the difference is that we do have a couple guys that you'd expect to get things out of, but they got to find their game. They got to figure out their game and develop the synergy. You can't float around and it's hard. There's a lot that goes into creating a scoring chance, and we have guys right now that are, when they're not the guy immediately on the puck, they're drifting to areas where they want somebody to get them the puck. tough to do at times. And now at other times we have the ability to we certainly have the time and space to get the puck to guys so that they should be getting open, but guys aren't showing the ability to do that. So I don't see a big difference. I see depth guys that we're speaking of, that we're talking about, that are doing a really good job for us, and I think we need other players to play that way. And it's not that they're not trying. It's not that the effort's not there. It's that it's figuring out the game, and then because if they don't, they risk gripping the stick tight and getting nervous and going into a bit of a shell, where in their mind they're working 1,000,000 miles an hour, but really what we're seeing on the ice is not 1,000,000 miles an hour. So, but when you have confidence in your game and you can dissect it and understand, and you have a good understanding and a good foundation of the game, a good structure, at the base level, everything will fall into place. You get that part in place, like me with golfing, world's worst golfer. I've said it many times, but I can be so bad that if I go out all the time, I can figure it out a little bit. But without that foundation, it's always like starting over every time I start. And I said, so I like to fish because I can drop a line in the water and have a chance of getting a fish to bite as easy as anybody else. But that if I took lessons and did it and then practiced those lessons, I'd start out in a good place and go to a better place. And that's part of learning. It's not that the effort's not there. It's that guys need to learn that have maybe never had to do it in the past because it's come easy and they've always been the top guy. They could always go through the motions. They never had to be that person that paid that attention to detail to be able to play and get that extra ice. That's part of their development here is that we need to help them do that, and then they need to put that in their DNA. Like some guys have done in the past, and then other guys struggle because they never learn the game, so they're always vulnerable to have an off year, because of the base that they've developed over time. But I do again, we do have 4 or 5 guys that are really playing off each other, are attentive to detail. There's other guys that aren't in the lineup that we think should be because they have the ability, but they can't figure out. They're not quite at the skill level as some of our other guys consistently, and they're not displaying that knowledge and that ability to forecheck and defend and transition and things. Well, I think you can see, he's a good player. He's a good kid. You could see, though, why he was a third-line player at New Hampshire, because some of those things that you saw and that you see, you can't do in your top 6. And you have to play with a lot of energy and a lot of, again, synergy and commitment to be that fourth line guy, that fourth line that's going out and does everything well for you, because they might not have all the skill in the world to make plays, but they can shut a game down and they can control momentum with energy and proper execution. They just can't put up the points at the other guys. So you can see why he was locked into where he's locked in. And over time, we either change habits or we fall back into who we were. When you first go in someplace, you're first, I'm first courting my wife, my future wife. I'm the nicest guy in the world. I'm the, flowers and da-da-da and da-da-da, and walk her home and hold her hand. And then you get into the, you go back to who you are, and all of a sudden you neglect to see that beauty and to pay attention to the detail that you need to pay attention to keep that relationship growing, until you're threatened a little bit by the next, Johnny come lately, and then he'll give her that attention. You know what I'm saying? So that's part of maturing, that I think Stiven has to learn. That we really liked him. Loved him at the start, competing hard and doing everything. And then you get, that initial luster wears off a little bit, and he's got to develop his complete game, because he needs to make other players better with his ability. And not just when someone does the work, gets the puck on his stick, but when on the breakouts, in the D zone cover, on the neutral zone forecheck, all those things to drive possession and drive offense, because he can certainly make a play. And the more he does that, the more chance he'll be of achieving his dreams of being an NHL player. Really good. I've enjoyed him here. Really good kid, really good player. I think you saw a little bit of frustration on Saturday night, and that frustration in a lot of ways led to 2 power play goals that were the difference in the hockey game. I think our goaltending is okay. I think Clarkson's goaltending was great. I think Alaska's goaltending was good. I thought that Maxey was good in that series. But when we look at things, we're our expected goals. We're like one of the top teams in the country on expected goals against. Like, so what we're allowing that analytically through AI generation, what should be an expected goal, like what should go in the net versus what goes in the net. In allowing those opportunities, we're one of the top teams in the country. In stopping those opportunities, we're okay. We're okay, but we're not giving up much. But we get some big saves, but consistently, we're spoiled. We're used to having a goaltender in here who, if you look at now, it's hard to see him. I got sent some pictures from a former player of mine that lives in Sweden and was watching Blake on television. Sent me the picture saying he's a great goalie. We're used to having, and it was hard to see him in red or orange or whatever color it is. And I noticed he doesn't have the Finnish. He's in Sweden playing. He doesn't have the Finnish flag on the back of his helmet. He's got the American flag. Probably a good move on his part. He knows how to play that game. But we're used to that. We're used to that, like the championship game last year where, he just wasn't going to get scored on. You know what I mean? And so expectations are high, but we saw what an elite performance can do this weekend. I mean, we looked at some plays. We had 2 scoring chances in overtime. Sardarian had one, and Phil Fankel had one. He walked in, and Legenager stood on his feet and made a glove save. Batted it with his glove like a cat batting away like a yarn ball that you throw at it. That was elite, and his numbers reflect it. Our goaltending is okay and needs to keep working, and they will. Great kids working very hard. So we'll keep working at it, and they'll keep working at it. But I like what I'm seeing out of both of them. There's good competition there, and we'll just keep tracking the numbers and see if someone emerges as being the guy. Well, they all worked us in that game, and they owned the last probably 25, 28 minutes of that game. We ended up getting a couple power plays and scored a couple power play goals. Their penalty kill will be better, more experienced at this time. I think overall, I think goaltending is a wash-up. Their goaltending's been playing really well against some really good teams at Colorado College, things like that. They played Arizona last weekend. I think goaltending, we'll see who emerges if there's one goalie on either team that wins a game for a team. I think that our defense on paper is more experienced, but we're only getting any type of offensive production out of Chase, who I think is leading our team in points, 2 goals, 2 assists. And so we have a team of guys that have an offensive prowess and defending, although they're doing a good job. And like I said, our team defense has been really good. But that's not their forte. So if you just come down to defending and you're not getting offense out of those other guys, that's probably a wash as well. So then it comes down to, we're getting the best play out of our depth guys that are trying to emerge and be top liners, and they have their depth guys, which is just because there are a whole lot of new faces emerging. They have probably more balance in how hard their overall forward contingent is working, thus impacting the game versus what our forward contingent 5-on-5 is. But we're both getting it out of guys that are trying to emerge. Their guys being freshmen and new guys, and our guys being some guy underclassmen that are figuring it out for the most part. I gotta be honest with you, I don't. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned. To me, a game is a game. I mean, that rivalry is awesome stuff. Like, I'm listening to the Michigan State football coach last night, and he's talking about, wow, I never knew it before I felt it, but I know it now, and things like that. More fans, a little bit louder. But if you're playing the way you should be playing, you're playing with that extra oomph every time you play. So to me, it's a hockey game without all the extra hype that you expect your guys. You only play 34 games, regular season type games, 34, and then a couple playoff games if you're fortunate enough to make it. Every one of them should have that energy. The rivalry is a great thing for the fans. And it's something you look forward to at the end of the game because it gets celebrated maybe a little bit more. based on the surrounding hype and things like that. We have the fortunate opportunity with the proximity to have northern fans at our game and have our fans at their game, which fills buildings up. But I look at a game, to me, a game is a game. I don't go in there and say, fellas, this is... Now, I know that they did that a little bit on their press conference and things like that earlier in the year. Beat Tech, beat Tech, beat Tech. Again, I think that's to ignite a fan base. I think their staff and everybody probably looks at it the same. That you're expected to play hard all the time. You get punched in the mouth, you punch back. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the way you got to play. He is a character, hardworking, competitive, fiery guy. So do we have to take advantage of that when we get the chance? The answer is yes. You have to take advantage of that, or else you're going to face it over and over and over again, and that will be the difference in the game. And the only way to settle that down is by putting the puck in the net in the power play. If not, keep it up, boys. Keep it up, boys. They can't score in the power play. Keep it up. Get one by one. Let's see the last team standing, and let's make sure it's us, fellas. So do we have to score on that? Yeah. Do we have to compete back? Absolutely. You know, it's that's the way they're going to play, because they're developing a culture and a competitive environment just like we do every year. We ask the same thing of our guys every single year.